This is chapter 13 of Literal to Living. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at Genesis chapter 19, starting with verse 30, going through Genesis chapter 20 in its entirety. That'll be through verse 18. Before we get started, quick word of prayer. Father, I'm thankful for another opportunity to learn more about you through the study of your word. I pray for wisdom, clarity, and understanding in Jesus' name. Amen. Picking up where we left off last week, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. There was one thing that I was thinking about a lot last week that I realized I don't think I talked about, but I thought about it a lot after the fact. I think I looked up the word Lord because we saw in chapter 18, in the beginning of it, it said, "And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre as he sat at the door of his tent. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, 'O Lord, if I found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant.'" So 3 men, he ran and he said, "O Lord." 3 men. But in the beginning of chapter 19, the 2 angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them and bowed himself with his face to the earth and said, "My lords," plural. But in this verse, it's a lowercase l. But in the previous chapter, when Abraham was talking to them, it was capital L. But I believe when I looked it up, it was the same word for Lord, I believe. So I'm just going to quickly look it up again just to confirm. I just thought, the reason I'm bringing this up again, because I just thought it was interesting that, who was that third person? I don't know, but who was that third person? So this was 18:1, the Lord. 18:3, "O Lord." 18:10, the Lord said. Now dropping to 19. So it's a different word. So all of these are Lord H4. And of course, the other one was Lords, plural. So let me skip to that one. All right, so that's Lord H4. Let's see if this lowercase Lord there's a lot of entries for Lord. It's like Johnson in the phone book. All right, so Lords. So that's Lord H1. So they were different. And just to remind myself, Lord H4 versus Lord H1. So the capital L was Lord H4, the 4th instance. And that was Yahweh, Lord. That was the 4th instance. And the first one, Lord 1, the lowercase one, was Lord or Master. So different versions, or the same word, but represented differently in each one. But yeah, who was the third person that was represented in that group right there? So I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was interesting. I don't have an answer. I don't know who it was. I know some people may theorize that it could have been a pre-incarnate Jesus. But yeah, I don't know who it was, but it's interesting. I saw it when it happened, but I never came back and talked about it. Sometimes I get so excited about other things that I don't come back and talk about things like this. But yes, I thought it was interesting. Okay, back to today. This Bible is heavy. Or maybe I'm weak. I don't know. Again, from the English Standard Version, Genesis chapter 19, verse 30. Now Lot went up out of Zoar, and lived in the hills with his 2 daughters, for he was afraid to live in Zoar. So he lived in a cave with his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man on earth to come into us after all the manner of all the earth. Not a man on earth. What are they thinking? They just destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Not the whole earth. Verse 32, Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. He did not know when she lay down or when she arose. The next day, the firstborn said to the younger, Behold, I lay last night with my father. Let us make him drink wine tonight also. Then you go in and lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father. So they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. The firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. The younger also bore a son and called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the Ammonites to this day. That is the rest of chapter 19, now going into chapter 20. From there, Abraham journeyed toward the territory of the Negeb and lived between Kadesh and Shur. So he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said to Sarah, his wife, She is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, Behold, here we go again. Behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Now Abimelech had not approached her. So he said, Lord, will you kill an innocent people? Did he not himself say to me, She is my sister? And she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart, in the innocence of my hands, I have done this. Then God said to him in the dream, Yes, I know that you have done this in the integrity of your heart, and it was I who kept you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not let you touch her. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. Hey, God's a G, okay? Don't play with the Lord. Let me just read that last part of verse 7 one more time. Actually, I'm going to read all of verse 7. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. Hey, don't play with God, all right? That's my God we talking about. Y'all see how I changed my voice a little bit for that part. All right. Verse 8. So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and told them all these things. And the men were very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? And how have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and my kingdom a great sin? You've done these things. You've done to me things that ought not to be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you see that you did this thing? And Abraham said, I did it because I thought, there is no fear of God at all in this place, and they will kill me because of my wife. Besides, she is indeed my sister, the daughter of my father, though not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. I remember reading about this earlier, and I thought that they were actually siblings, and I could not remember. Well, here we go. They are actually siblings as well. Verse 13, and when God caused me to wander from my father's house, I said to her, This is the kindness you must do to me. At every place to which we come, say of me, He is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham and returned Sarah his wife to him. And Abimelech said, Behold, my land is before you. Dwell where it pleases you. To Sarah he said, Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is a sign of your innocence in the eyes of all who are with you and before everyone. You are vindicated. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and female slaves, so that they bore children, for the Lord had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Yikes. Listen, so anybody out there that likes reality TV, you don't have to look at no reality TV, okay? It's right here in the Word. This situation with Lot and his daughters, bro, that's crazy. That's crazy. They got my man drunk, and they said, there's not another man on earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. I'm not sure what they thought when Sodom and Gomorrah was being destroyed, but for whatever reason, it's like they think that it's just the three of them now. So if you remember from the previous chapter, or from the last chapter of Literal to Living, the sons-in-law thought that Lot was joking. It says in chapter 19, verse 14, well, actually, so the angels had said in verse 12, then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone you have in the city? Bring them out of the place, for we are about to destroy this place, because the outcry against its people has become great before the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and said to his sons-in-law, who were to marry his daughters, up, get out of this place, for the Lord is about to destroy the city. But he seemed to his sons-in-law to be jesting. So they thought he was joking. So it seems that his daughters thought, okay, we have a dad, and it's us two sisters. How are we going to have more of us, more people? We're the last ones. Though that's not true, it's like that's what they're thinking, that we're going to have the last ones. That we're the last ones. Lot didn't have a wife anymore. Why? Because she looked back and she was turned into a pillar of salt. That was in verse 26. But Lot's wife behind him looked back and she became a pillar of salt. So maybe if Lot still had his wife, maybe they wouldn't have done this. Maybe they would have waited until they had more kids. And then maybe they would have taken their brothers, and they would have taken their brothers as wives, similar to what Abraham did with his sister, Sarah. I'm not sure. That still sounds a little weird to me. But these are the Bible days. Things were a little bit different back then. But they got him drunk. So the second time we see in Genesis where somebody got drunk. First time was Noah. And then now you see Lot's getting drunk. Now, I don't even know. Well, they were in Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Because I was going to say, I don't even know. What do they know about somebody getting drunk? But they were in Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the party town, right? It's like going to Vegas, being on the strip, but way worse. So Abraham, he went toward the territory of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur, and he sojourned in Gerar. So Abimelech, he sent and took her. And then he was asleep, and he had a dream, and God spoke to him in his dream. And after all of this, once again, Abraham had a come up. He got a lot of wealth. Says Abimelech took sheep and oxen and male servants and female servants and gave them to Abraham. and returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And also 1,000 pieces of silver was given to him as well. So it's really a short passage, not a lot. Let's see. It's time to turn on the notebook. I think I see 3 different principles. So I'm going to start writing some things down, and I will see you all on the other side of this note taking. Okay, so we just talked about how Lot and his daughters, after everything was destroyed, after Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed, so they fled to Zoar, and they ended up in the hills, and they were living in a cave. The older daughter felt like there's no more men left on the earth. So in Genesis 19:31, firstborn said to the younger, "Our father is old. There is not a man on the earth to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father." The principle that I see here is that improper perspectives can lead to irrational decisions. Like literally, they made this decision because they thought they were the last people on the earth. That's what they thought. It was a bad perspective. That's all. Let me write one more thing down that I should have wrote already. So a lot of people say, well, my perception is my reality. Well, sometimes one's perception is their delusion, because just because you perceive something to be a certain way, it doesn't make it anybody's reality. It could just be simply a delusion. Just because you perceive it to be that way, doesn't at all make it your reality or anybody else's reality, because real is real. Real will always be real. True is always true. So just because they had this perception, just because they had this perspective, it wasn't right. So that improper perspective led them to make a decision to go and have sex with their father and to get pregnant by him. And that was crazy. That was very crazy. And yeah, that's very crazy. But the crazy thing is, it's very easy to do this in real life as well. When you think about things that you may pray for, and when you don't hear from God, you may take that as an answer sometimes. And it may not be an answer. He just may not have given you an answer yet. And we'll make decisions based off of God not even speaking to us yet. God hasn't even said anything to us yet, but we're making a decision based off the fact that he hasn't said anything to us yet, right? Sometimes our perspective is just not correct. Could be a situation of, I've heard people in relationships say that, well, he really knows me, or like she really knows me, or, I don't really want to start over. It's not going to be any better if I start with anybody else. So I might as well, stay with this person. Because, sometimes people out there, they settle in relationships, and because you think it's maybe not going to be any better if you could decide to do anything else. And that's an improper perspective that could lead to irrational decisions, right? When you start thinking that there's nothing better for you, it'll lead you to make the decision to stay when you probably need to go. I talked about previously parenting out of fear instead of out of faith. Well, similar thing, I just have to be rational and keep proper perspectives in place. And there's really no other way to say that. But this can impact us in ministry as well. Whether it's you feel like time is running out, whether you feel like I know I used to have this issue with time. If I felt like I didn't have enough time to get something done, I would try to rush through it. I may try to take some shortcuts. I may have needed to talk to one specific person to do a certain part of it. And maybe I would just bypass that, just rush straight through it. And next thing you know, there's issues because I didn't follow the process all the way through. So you end up with just a little bit of problem as it relates to that. But yeah, the whole perception is my reality thing. I've always had a problem with that. And the last thing that I wrote is perspective isn't just what you see, it's what you believe about what you see. The next principle. So again, that principle was improper perspectives can lead to irrational decisions. Now, this next principle, I feel like, you know what? I want to open my notes from a previous chapter. Let's see here. Could have been last week because I feel like this is a similar principle. Yeah, so last week we had a principle, take grace seriously before it's gone. You know, Lot warned his sons-in-law and he warned his sons-in-law about the Sodom and Gomorrah was about to be destroyed, and they thought he was joking. Well, when those balls of sulfur start coming down on Sodom and Gomorrah and destroying it, they probably was like, he's not kidding, right? So there's a similar principle for this week. So God warns us, listen before it's too late. And that's illustrated with Abimelech, right? He took Sarah into his household because Abraham said, she's my sister. Sarah said, he's my brother. But God appeared to him in a dream and said, behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. So Abimelech, you know, he played with God like, God, I'm innocent. Like, I ain't do nothing. I ain't even know. Like, didn't Abraham say this, you know? But God warned him, and he gave him an opportunity. It would be wise for us to listen, right? There was a scene in Coming to America, that's my favorite movie of all time, where Samuel L. Jackson was getting ready to rob the McDowell's restaurant. And he walked in and said, anybody move, I'll blow your, freaking head off. And, what was his name? Prince Akeem was mopping the floor. And he walked over to Samuel L. Jackson's character. I don't think he had a name in the movie. And he gave him a warning. And he told him something to the effect of, it would be wise for you to put down your gun and stop using, stop saying these obscenities in the presence of these people. Samuel L. Jackson said something to the effect of, who is this butthole? And Prince Akeem, played by Eddie Murphy, gave him a warning and said, I'm warning you. I'll be forced to thrash you. There was another expletive. And next thing you know, Samuel L. Jackson's on the ground. Prince Akeem standing over him with a mop, and Arsenio Hall's character, has now grabbed a shotgun and cocked it and pointed at him and said, freeze, you diseased rhinoceros pizzle. I don't know what that is. I don't know what a diseased rhinoceros pizzle is, but that was a hilarious part of the movie to me. So this is just like with Abimelech, and like many of us, God warns us, and we need to listen before it's too late. So Samuel L. Jackson, he could have walked out of the store, I'm warning you, I'll be forced to thrash you. So he got thrashed. He got thrashed. I don't know what thrashing is. Well, I do, but he got thrashed. God warns us. We got to listen before it's too late. Abimelech did listen, right? How does God warn us? He warns us through conviction, through counsel, through scripture. In the case of Abimelech, through dreams, he warned him. Sometimes we brush it off, though. Sometimes we will be obedient, but it will be delayed obedience. Sometimes we will just rationalize our way around it, right? I talked about relationships earlier. Sometimes we're involved in relationships, and it doesn't just have to be like romantic relationships. Sometimes it's relationships with colleagues, relationships with just friends, right? People that we hang out with. And we might be feeling a certain kind of way, or we may feel in our spirit a warning about their character or their intentions, and that we should stay away from them. But we don't. We hope everything will work out, and then it doesn't work out. And we're wondering, like, man, like, why did this happen? Well, you were warned, right? Even in business, one thing I'm big on in the work that I do is being ethical, right? I do cybersecurity auditing work, and we assess companies' compliance with cybersecurity frameworks. And so either we assess you or we advise you, but we can't do both. And sometimes you want to be able to help people because you know it's something so simple that they need to do to be able to be compliant, so that when you assess them, they'll be good. But you know, that's not ethical. You do one or the other. You advise them or you assess them. You know, there are codes of professional conduct that we have to follow. Sometimes, you know, God warns us about like personal habits that we have. Like you ever, like I can think about times where I've had certain habits that I needed to kick or that I needed to break. And I may have even been indulging in one of those habits, and I'll just feel the Spirit of God telling me, you need to stop. You need to stop. You need to stop. And I'm still doing whatever it is, right? He's warning me. He'll be forced to thrash me. And for whatever reason, just keep doing it. Sometimes we get a warning and we rationalize things, right? There are some things that are just socially acceptable. So we rationalize and say, well, it's not that big a deal. Like everybody's doing it, right? It's socially acceptable. And, but again, God warns us a lot of the time, and we need to listen before it's too late. Abimelech, he pled his innocence to God. God responded. He listened to God before it was too late. God said again, behold, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Now coming back over to that verse that I enjoyed, verse 7. Now then, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so that he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall surely die, you and all who are yours. There it is. There it is. You know? Yeah. Okay. The last principle here. Don't keep forming patterns with fear. Break them with faith. I don't remember when it was. I don't know what chapter it was. Chapter 12. When Abram and Sarai were in Egypt. Abraham repeated the same fear-driven deception that he used in Egypt. Again, with Abimelech claiming that Sarah was his sister. Now, of course, yeah, she was. But it was his fear that drove him to do it again, saying Sarah was his sister. What did Abimelech do? He took her into his house. But God intervened, right? He warned Abimelech. And, Abimelech, he obeyed. He returned her. He returned Sarah. And let's see here. He returned Sarah. Abraham prayed for him. And God healed Abimelech's household. Don't keep forming patterns with fear. Break them with faith. A couple things to understand is that fear doesn't just cause mistakes. It builds cycles. But talking about cycles, right? Mistakes are like moments in time, right? Cycles are patterns. Fear might cause you to make a mistake. So you'll make one bad decision. You might lie. You might pull away. You might compromise. You might do it one time. But what happens is when fear causes the mistake to become your default, that's when it's a cycle. When it becomes your go-to, right? That's when it's a cycle. That's when it's a pattern. And you have to break those with faith. Because what ends up happening is you will repeat what feels safe, even if it's spiritually harmful. If it feels safe, you're going to keep doing it. So look at what Abraham did. It felt safe to keep saying every time he rolled up on somebody that looked like they would kill him, oh, this is my sister. But it could have led to her, like Abraham was told that he was to be the father of many nations, right? So Sarah was barren, right? Sarah was barren. And then Sarah was told she's going to have a child this time next year, a little bit earlier. So it's possible that Sarah is to where she can conceive right now at the time that this is happening with Abimelech right now. And God intervened to make sure that she wasn't defiled, because Abraham was told he was going to be the father of many nations. How crazy would that have been if Abimelech had defiled her and she got pregnant with Abimelech's child, and now Abraham's raising Abimelech's child? That would have been crazy. That would have been very crazy. I know I talked about relationships a couple times, but actually, let me go back to this cycles thing one more time. The cycles, they feel normal. You told that lie one time, but now lying is normal. You compromised yourself one time. So here's an example. You went out with the fellas from work. Oh man, I know you're a Christian, but don't be a prude. Like, we just hanging out. It's happy hour. We all do shots. This is what we always do. But God has already been convicting you, and he already, told you you can't drink anymore, or you shouldn't drink, whatever it is. So what do? Like, you should be evangelizing your coworkers, helping them to learn and know who Christ is. But instead, shot. You taking shots. And so you compromise yourself. You compromise your witness. And it becomes commonplace with you. So now every time you go out, like, it's a cycle now. Like, you can't even stop. It's happening all the time. You just can't stop. So different things can trigger you to just fall back on this habit over and over again. Faith can help stop those cycles from happening, though, or it can stop them from continuing to happen. Don't keep forming patterns with fear. Break them with faith. When you are a leader, there have been times where I've led and fear has caused me to not want to like be as transparent as I wanted to be, or to maybe not want to tell the truth sometimes for fear of rejection. And because if it's happened before, if I've been truthful or if I've been transparent and it's caused like a negative result or there was a negative impact, then I'm less likely to want to do it again. So, that would be fear, again, causing me to form a pattern. And, I got to watch out for that. There's two more things that I wrote down. Sometimes when stress hits, it's really easy to lean on like certain coping mechanisms to help you escape. But even though the damage that's associated with that escape mechanism or that, that coping mechanism, you still do it. Fear can cause you to run to something, even if it's bad for you. Faith is what helps us to break those things. I wrote this other one down, but I'm just looking at don't keep forming patterns with fear and break them with faith. I don't really think it applies, so I'm gonna leave that one out. Yeah, it does. It does. So sometimes in ministry, or sometimes when you feel like God has called you to do something, fear will cause you to kind of shrink back and not do what God has called you to do because I'm not ready again. You were ready, but fear has caused you to feel like, I'm not ready. I can't do this. I'm not ready. I can't do this. And you just keep yourself in that thought process instead of trusting God to, push you to do whatever he's called you to do. You just, I don't know if I can do that, and excuse. Don't keep forming patterns with fear. Break them with faith. Have faith that God is going to, I think there was a principle that went along with some of this. Trust God to deliver on his promises, right? If God said that it's going to happen, then believe it. I think I gave an example of where somebody that I've worked with talked about how, when Jesus said, let's get on the boat and go to the other side, he just said, we're going to the other side. So when they're on the boat and the waves and the wind start kicking up and they're like, you just sleeping through this, like we about to die. No, he said, let's go to the other side. So you're going to the other side. So this boat ain't going to wipe y'all out. That's why he can sleep. That's why he can be at peace, because he knows it's not going to wipe y'all out. And sometimes we just have to trust God. So Abraham was making these decisions, but he wasn't trusting God. And as a result of this decision, he messing with Abimelech now. Like there was a part where Abraham said, I didn't think that there was any fear of God here in this place. But you know what? Let me look at this over here real fast. I just wanted to look and see here about Abimelech. See what information they have about him. Okay, this is what I was looking for here. So obviously I have not looked through the text and done a study to see where this information is at, but I was wondering who Abimelech was in terms of genealogy. So I'm looking at my book here, all the people in the Bible, an A to Z guide to saints, scoundrels, and other characters in Scripture. So Abimelech, the king of Gerar, says was the Canaanite king of Gerar. Little is known of him. Little is known of him, but it says he was a Canaanite. Yeah, so I was curious what his lineage was. So he was a Canaanite. And who were the Canaanites descendants of? Pop quiz. Ham. So I'm not sure how far along the Canaanites were at this moment, because they, like I said, they were descendants of Ham. Ham, Shem, Japheth. And surely Ham, Shem, and Japheth, they knew who God was. But how many generations in was it before they, I'm not sure. So first point, improper perspectives can lead to irrational decisions. So, focus on having the right perspective so that you can make the right decisions. Remember, God warns us, so listen before it's too late. You don't want to get caught in a situation where you're not listening and you're making the wrong decision. The right decision is to listen before it's too late. And then don't keep forming patterns with fear. Break them with faith. Now, of course, if this isn't your first chapter of Literal to Living, you know what I'm about to say. You may have gotten something else. I'd love to hear about it. Share it with us in the comments, and we can talk about it there and continue to grow this community of believers. Again, my name is Alexi Johnson, and I want to thank you for watching today's chapter of Literal to Living. If this blessed you, consider subscribing so you'll be notified as new chapters drop, usually every Tuesday morning. If it's not quite for you, but you know someone else who may benefit, feel free to share it with them. Finally, it is my sincere prayer that these chapters not only help us to understand God's word, but to live it out. So I'll see you next time as we continue to go from literal to living. Thanks.